maybe 60, 70 rejections, starting to run out of cash, then thereafter getting down to 3, 4 payrolls.
I wanted you to hear that. That's Vishal, the founder of LinkSquares. They've now raised $161 million. They have over 400 employees and an incredible business. Here's a couple of the things that they did along the way that made a big impact.
Having the discipline, let's talk to 100 leaders of the legal department inside of companies before we go and spend lots of money we don't have and building software that will never work or sell, right?
I talked to too many founders who want to start building too fast. Get to 100 customer discovery interviews.
You have to have good sales leader ASP fit. You can't hire a sales leader who's historically been selling $4 million deals to the Fortune 500 and expect them to sell at a $30,000 price point for 30 days. Like, they're just built differently.
These are just a few of the highlights that he goes over. It's a great episode. Boom. Vishal, welcome to Sit Down Startup Founder Podcast. Super excited to have you here. If you would first just tell us about your company, what you're working on, and how big it is right now.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Great to be here. LinkSquares is software for legal teams, and we sell contract management software to in-house legal teams to make their life more awesome. It's an older market, but ripe with kind of a big innovation push that we're helping lead. And the company is going great. We're 7 years old, just turned 7 last year, and about 400 employees, and have raised like $161 million, 5 rounds of venture capital financing.
Congratulations. This is exciting. Y'all are right in line with the kind of founders that we talk to of companies like Outreach, Zoom Info, like these huge amounts of money that they've raised. So I'm excited to go under the hood here and learn a little bit about some of the growth strategies that you've had to get there. But first, I know it's a challenging time out there as a founder. So is there a low moment that you could share with us and like kind of how you were feeling? Take us in that boardroom or whatever it was, just to give people inspiration that they can get past that.
Yeah, we had raised our seed round in 2018, and then we're operating in 2019. And the business was just going gangbusters. Like, we're going to triple our revenue. That was probably like a 1 to 4 million ARR type journey that we were on. We had like 25 people in the company, and we had added, I don't know, over 120 new customers in 1 year. And it was going so fast that we eventually were like, okay, we should go raise capital. And doing the Series A financing, and I really think Series A probably the hardest one there is. You're kind of like an awkward teenager. You're not quite a full-blown adult, but you're not like just an idea with a bunch of people. You're kind of somewhere in the middle. Doing the Series A really challenging. Maybe 60, 70 rejections, starting to run out of cash, then thereafter getting down to 3, 4 payrolls, and then kind of having the belief that we would get it done and go get it done. But definitely a moment of stress where things are going so well, but the fundraise just wasn't going so well. God, we could do a whole podcast on that alone, but that was definitely a low moment in some of the maybe more stressful 100 days of my life. But we got through it like every good founder does. You get through it.
Wow. So yeah, you're basically having pitches with VCs, and you have a couple months left of payroll before you're going to have to go shut things down. Did you ever look into what it would actually take to shut it down? Did you get there, or
Never. We had institutional capital then through our seed round. So I knew that there was a lifeline if we needed it. I never really kind of thought that we needed it, but just kind of the journey of being in those rooms and trying to convince people that this is a great business. We're going to build a big company, which eventually I think we kind of did right now. But just how hard it was to convince people to give you more money to keep on the journey. So.
Wow. I appreciate you sharing that. That's really inspiring considering you've raised 161 million now. So it obviously, it worked. I think being on the venture side, it's easy from my perspective. It was easy to kind of put companies, pigeonhole companies and be like, oh, they're just not there. It's just not a good company or whatever. And I'm sure that it sounded like a lot of VCs probably did consider you that at the Series A level. And yet you're where you are now. So I want that to be known to all the founders out there that might feel stuck.
The interesting thing is there's a lot of reasons for no, and some of them you can't control, right? Like sentiment about your buyer or the market you're in or how you go to market or your price point. Oh, it should be 6-figure only, or why don't you sell this for $1 to every person? And everyone's got their opinions, but I think the doing 5 rounds of capital, you always need one true believer who can kind of see past the roughness around the edges, potentially if there is roughness, but really believes in what you're doing and likes it. I mean, I always tell founders, when you fundraise, like in the first 10, 15 minutes, like it's chemical. Like it's chemical between you and the other person. If it's not chemical, it's never going to be chemical, right? And so trying to continue to have hope that you'll find that chemistry with someone that believes in what they do. I mean, hard job as well. Being a venture capitalist, hard job, a lot of no's, see lots of deals, right? Maybe lots of regrets, who knows?
That's so good. I really appreciate that. Well, tell us about some of the growth stories or strategies that you had in the early days, right before that hockey stick moment.
Yeah, I think about it in kind of 2 periods. There was kind of the 0 to 1 million journey and then the 1 to 10 million journey that had like lots of different challenges. I mean, just the 0 to 1 journey is all about like, did you build the right product? Like, did you take your time to build the right product and solve the right problem? Like, and we did, right? So we probably spent a year, maybe over a year, just not building software, even though I'm like a software builder, like traditionally, and my co-founder is like more like a sales account management type person. And so kind of having the discipline to like, let's talk to 100 leaders of a legal department inside of companies before we go and spend lots of money we don't have and building software that will never work or sell, right? And once you kind of establish you did enough discovery, it's like, okay, founder-led sales, like just grinding through terrible conversion rates because it's just hard. There's not a lot of evidence the company will be alive next year. There's not a lot of proof points. A lot of people use it. You're not on any Magic Quadrant or Forrester Wave, or you're not even on G2 back then. I mean, G2 wasn't even really a thing back then, like G2 Crowd. And then after kind of we did 5 logos the first year and then added another 20. You kind of saw the kind of pattern match, right? And then on the way to 1 million, I picked up a great sales leader, my CRO, Steve, who's still here over 4 years now. And there is a moment where you give it to someone, which is great, right? You have enough mass assembled of knowledge where I can say, listen, my co-founder and I, we're a bunch of knuckleheads. Like we got it this far to 700, 800K. I'm a big believer in that. Like you can't outsource that part of it, because everyone in the company is gonna need the knowledge that you have, whether it's product or engineering or marketing. How did you do it? What was the message? What resonated? You have a lot of that in here. You're not doing a heavy amount of CRM work when there's 2 people that work in the company, right? You're doing a little bit of it, but then getting into 1 million is like a great inflection point. It's like, wow, $1 million of recurring revenue is going to come in every year. That's awesome. Then you think about like, how do you go fast 1 to 10, right? And we're so fortunate we're able to go 1 to 10 in just over 2 years, like 2 years and a couple months. And once we kind of knew that we could do 1 to 10 that quickly, that whole model can continue to scale, right? Like if you have 20 sales reps, you can get 40, you can get 60, you can get 100. And the ability to then think about the next sort of journey in a company is like, how do you do it efficiently? How do you build the pipeline? How do you look at CAC payback? How do you think about sales efficiency, and then kind of on and on? And then after 10 million ARR, you're really kind of thinking about like, how do I get to 100 now? Right. And that's the journey we're on now. It's like, how do you get to 100 now? And then you kind of, your mindset continues to change. But, some of the strategies were like, you have to have good sales leader ASP fit, right? I'm a big believer in that. Like, you can't hire a sales leader who's historically been selling $4 million deals to the Fortune 500 and expect them to sell at a $30,000 price point for 30 days. Like they're just built differently, right? You're just running a different strategy, right? I mean, it's kind of like football. You're a run first offense or a pass first offense. You can't get someone to be something they're not, right? And so having that good kind of sales leader ASP fit, no stretching there. No, maybe shoulda, coulda, Adam can figure it out. He's smart enough. yes, everyone's smart enough to figure it out, but you probably don't have the luxury of time to be able to wait that long to figure it out. So that's really key. Pick someone that, and all your executives, as you think about executives, pick people that other folks who are earlier on their journey will aspire to become, right? That was a lot of my journey of being kind of like an individual contributor, manager, whatever, on the way to becoming like the CEO, becoming a founder. Is so many people brought me up in the game. So many people taught me about marketing and about product development and about sales positioning and branding and copywriting and selling. Just how do you sell, right? And so if you can find the right leaders who work for the CEO, then your recruiting kind of happens naturally. Everyone wants to kind of orbit around someone who can teach them how to become better at what they do. And I think that's been a real special thing on the growth side, especially on the recruiting side. And then kind of whatever got you to 1 million will get you to 4 or 10, right? Or 5 or 10. It's like, don't get real experimental with kind of targeting strategies either, right? Like the things that got you to 1 will get you to 5. Stay focused on that. Like, okay, we're selling to, I don't know, whatever, public companies that sell software. Okay, great. Well, let's just focus on that right now. We know that's proven. Don't bet the farm on experimentation either, right? Like you need wins every month. You need wins every quarter, right? And so staying focused is the most important thing. Things that are working, put more doubles on it, double down on it, triple down on it, quadruple down on it. And then experiment kind of loosely with things that, can't ruin your future either, right? And I think those are some of the things that we kind of figured out and focused on in the early days.
I love that. And that reminds me of Malcolm Gladwell's Great by Choice was talking about like Canon, like he studied companies that grew really fast and like they did like little small micro tests like you're talking about. And then they did maybe 1 or 2 after to confirm it. And then they went big in that area and they doubled down on what they saw was working. But like to experiment as a huge percentage of your company is a really dumb thing to do. So
totally.
But going back to the first thing you said. So you said we talked to 100 legal department leaders. That is very interesting. And you did that and your co-founder. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, sure. We were more afraid of building the wrong product. And you see it, right? People rush to build software. They think software is the key, right? It's like, here's a potential business problem. Let's go create a solution and then go to customers, right? Wrong, right? Bad path. Like, here's a business problem that exists in the world. Let's get the customer in front of it first. Like, who could that customer be? Validate that the problem is what they have. They would pay money for it. Solution comes later. Some of the hardest years in the journey, to be honest, like making no money, getting rejected every day. People are like, I don't want this at all. But just having the kind of grit and determination to keep going through the conversations and amassing knowledge of consensus, right? Like, okay, 70 people say we should build what we ended up building with LinkSquares, and
then we're on
now let's go do it, right?
And this was before you built the product, because you said you're a developer.
Totally.
Yeah. Totally. Was there a conversation that you could kind of take us in the where you kind of felt the shift during that 100-leader research?
Yeah, the pain point around knowing what was inside contracts that had already been signed versus software that gets contracts to the point of signing. Like, getting contracts to the point of signing was something that had already existed in the world for like 20 years, right? Like drafting a contract, redlining it, versioning it, getting it through approval. Like, there's a lot of companies that do that already, and companies already have their process. But the real thing that we heard was, like, through our own experience, we had that pain. My co-founder and I had that direct pain working at a company that got bought by another company. And the big company that bought us asked us what was in all our contracts. So it was like, ding, hey, this is interesting. Like, why is this so hard? And then you kind of build off that proof point, like asking open-ended questions. Like, if someone asks you to figure out which contracts have termination for convenience in it, and you have 10,000 customer contracts, how would you do it? And it's like, it's manual. We have to read them all one at a time. Like, we have nothing to be able to search it, or there's no metadata that we know about these contracts we've already executed. And then you kind of build consensus to the next person that's like, hey, we just heard on a phone call that this was a problem for someone else. Is that the same problem for you? Yes, check. Okay. Hey, I heard from two people that this was the same problem. Is this the problem for you? Check. Okay, you keep going. The cool thing is, Adam, is that you start talking like them, like you start using the same sort of terminology that they use. Then, you're getting deep into the mind of the buyer. Like, I'm not a general counsel, right? I'm not a lawyer. I'm a 2-degree engineer, right? Like a software engineer, product type person. I don't know much about them, but your journey in the early days is really to learn about your buyer. Like, who are they as people? What do they value? Where are they on the power line of the decision making of the company? Are they the CEO's best friend, or are they the CEO's like, oh yeah, we have that legal guy too. Like he's here too periodically. Like, you have to really deeply understand it, because ultimately you're going to ask them to go sign an order form, become a customer, use this product, and be a champion of yours.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure there's a lot of cool stories in that. And I know we can't unpack them all now, but I really appreciate that. Just like getting really deep in the head of the customer and understanding the problem better than they do. During these interviews, were you showing them mock-ups at all, or was it just conversational?
Yeah. Clickable prototypes of your friends, kind of low risk, easy to kind of put together. So many tools now that we didn't have that are available in the market today. No code, low code, whatever. We were able to show that. And then, periodically people will be like, what's that button do? And it's like, you don't want to see that. Well, there's really that button doesn't do anything, but you don't know that.
That makes a lot of sense, but it's super lightweight stuff in that piece to expedite the conversation and to expedite the learning. Well, this has been unbelievable. I really appreciate you sharing your story. The final question is, what is your superpower as a founder?
Yeah, I love thinking about product, building great software experiences. And that's something I'm passionate about: innovation, technology, thinking through with all my kind of years of working as an operator in businesses and operations and data, like what makes great product experiences? Like how do you use automation and make your life better? Right. And also I think selling, right? If you're a founder, you got to get good at selling, whether that's selling the vision to investors or selling the vision to future executive hires or people on the team. And eventually over time, you make it a superpower. I think it's a mandatory superpower. All founders, like, you have to be able to sell at some level. Like, you have no choice, but those are the things that fire me up. I love the product stuff. I really love it all, but the product stuff has been my favorite.
I love that. When I was interviewing Henry Schuck, the founder of ZoomInfo, he was saying that he still carried a bag as a salesperson when they were at 85 million ARR. And I was like, wow. And he says his most valuable time is listening to sales calls to understand like those emotional pain points that are happening when you're asking the customer for money or the prospect for a close. So I love to hear that. That's a consistent theme I've heard for all these interviews. That's awesome. Well, the final question is, what did you want to be when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grow up? I didn't tell you this one.
Astronaut.
Wow.
And my wife was the same. She wanted to be an astronaut too. So I guess that's what we got. I guess that's what we got married. We both relied on a love of going to space. But yeah, no, I was obsessed with space as a kid. I don't know, weird kid growing up.
No, I love it. I bet that can come true now, like with all the options we got now. That is.
Oh yeah, for sure. It'll be exciting one day.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. This has been an incredible episode.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. If you want to learn more about Zendesk for startups, check out our website, zendesk.com/startups. Also, we're always looking to improve, so don't hesitate to email me with any feedback on how we can ask better questions, guests to target, or anything else so we can do to better help you as a founder. My email is adam.o'donnell@zendesk.com.